Salam, peace be upon you. My name is Mohammed Layiq Sediqi, the father of Holophase. Welcome to the dark room of discovery, where we develop not the image, but the negative, where we don't study the picture, but the fingerprints we left all over it. This is part 21, The Ghosts in the Pipeline. We are about to hunt the most insidious source of error, not the lie, not the mistake, but the unspoken choice. The default setting no one questioned, the standard way of doing things that became invisible. We name this hunt the Tacit Assumption Extraction Protocol. The skill you will gain here is that of an assumption interrogator. You will learn to walk into any laboratory, any paper, any dataset, and force the entire pipeline, from the first flicker of a sensor to the triumphant headline, to confess its secrets. You will learn to ask, is this a truth about the universe, or merely an echo of our own hidden machinery? Our question is precise. How do we expose the invisible premises that secretly determine our discoveries? Because there is always a gap, a canyon really, between our clean, formal methodology written in papers and the messy, choice-laden journey our data actually takes. We have built a rigorous pipeline, from raw reality through measurement into sentences, and finally to a proclaimed law. But at every stage, at every single arrow, ghosts whisper. How do we smooth the jagged data line? Where do we set the 0 point of our map? What do we call background noise and subtract away? What threshold makes a signal real? These are tacit assumptions. They are not in the official registry. They are the ghosts in the walls. And when left unexamined, they can build entire castles in the air, spurious laws that are just reflections of the pipeline's own architecture. The core revelation here is both liberating and severe. Most false laws are not lies. They are unstated assumptions pretending to be nature. A rule that lives and dies by a specific smoothing kernel, a preferred coordinate system, or an arbitrary noise threshold is not a law of the fundamental reality we call fa. It is a law of the recipe. It is a user manual for our own apparatus. The extraction protocol is a systematic exorcism. It hunts these dependencies. It asks, is this about the world or about our particular way of looking at it? Let us build this protocol from the ground up. Picture the journey. Reality, fa, a measurement window, a raw screaming signal, processing and cleaning, a clean phi sentence, an ensemble of sentences, an inferred rule. At every arrow, a choice is made. The Tacit Assumption Extraction Protocol requires 4 ruthless steps. 1. Identify every point in this pipeline where a non-unique human or algorithmic choice was made. Find the forks in the road where we went left without saying why. 2. Parameterize that choice. Give it a name. Turn the silent "we did it this way" into an explicit knob, alpha, that can be turned. 3. Rotate that knob. Twist alpha through every reasonable alternative setting. Run the entire pipeline again. 4. Observe what happens to the final holy rule, G. Does it stand firm, or does it crumble like a ghost under dawn's light? If the rule G is robust, if it is truly a constraint on Fa, it must remain substantially intact under this rotation. Its core parameters shouldn't careen wildly. Its predictive heart must keep beating. If G changes dramatically or vanishes entirely, it was never real. It was a phantom, an artifact of that one hidden switch setting. We can formalize this haunting. Let alpha be our ghost, the width of a smoothing kernel, the origin of a coordinate grid. Let G of alpha be the rule inferred when the pipeline runs with alpha set. Let G0 be the original rule inferred with the default unreported ghost value alpha 0. The test is a simple question. Is g of alpha is proc to g0 for all reasonable alpha? If the rule's parameters are a vector theta, we measure the variation. Delta theta of alpha equals theta of alpha minus theta of alpha 0. We then pit this variation against the statistical uncertainty delta theta, the error bars we so carefully calculated. The verdict is clear. If delta theta of alpha lenid delta theta of alpha for all reasonable alpha, the rule is robust. The ghost has no power. If delta theta of alpha for some alpha, the rule is fragile. It is bound to that assumption. It is the ghost wearing a crown. Why is this extraction so vital? The failure mode it prevents is catastrophic. Mistaking methodological artifacts for laws of the universe. Entire fields can chase phantoms for decades because no one questioned a default in their software, a standard background subtraction. The TAEP institutionalizes the most profound question in science. What if we did it another reasonable way? It replaces dogma with disciplined exploration. Now, we must integrate this with the triunity of perception: omega, time, k, space, and v, motion. This is where ghosts are most at home, and the exorcism most powerful. Tacit assumptions often secretly privilege one echo over others. First, omega domain ghosts, the tyranny of the clock, your choice of data bin size, your smoothing timescale, your filter cutoff. These are temporal ghosts. They can invent or erase rhythms. A discovered 10 Hz oscillation in brainwaves might vanish if you change your smoothing window from 100 milliseconds to 150 milliseconds. The protocol demands: name your clock. Now speed it up, slow it down. Does the rhythm hold, or was it just the metronome in your own machine? Second, K-domain ghosts, the dictatorship of the grid. Your coordinate system origin, your pixel size, your interpolation method for scattered data. These are spatial ghosts. They can create or dissolve structures. A discovered galaxy cluster at a certain point in the sky might shift or disappear if you change your mapping projection. The protocol commands: name your grid. Now rotate it, warp it. Does the structure hold, or was it just a trick of your graph paper? Third, V-domain ghosts, the illusion of the frame. Your choice of reference frame, what you call at rest. Your method for extracting a force constant. These are motion ghosts. They generate apparent forces. The Coriolis force only exists if you choose a rotating frame. If you tacitly assume your lab is a perfect inertial frame, it never is, you might infer spurious pushes and pulls. The protocol insists: name your frame. Now boost it, spin it. Does the force law hold, or does it change with your vantage point? Extraction means name them, test them, rotate them. A rule that survives this triunity inquisition is one step closer to being about Fa and not about our descriptive convenience. Now, connect this decisively to energy as tally, the idea that energy is the sacred ledger of reality. This is where ghosts love to hide, like budgeting errors in an undocumented spreadsheet formula. Consider the Pioneer anomaly. For decades, a tiny haunting whisper plagued physicists. The Pioneer 10 and 11 spacecraft, speeding out of our solar system, were slowing down just a fraction more than they should. The sun's gravity couldn't account for it. It was an energy anomaly, a tiny, persistent drain on the ledger. Was it new physics? A crack in gravity's law? Years of brilliant detective work traced it not to the cosmos, but to the spacecraft's own blueprints. The anomaly was an accounting error. The spacecraft were powered by radioactive pellets, glowing with heat. That heat radiated away, but not perfectly evenly. A tiny anisotropic push, a whisper of thermal radiation pressure, was not fully accounted for in the force model. The energy anomaly was a ghost in the engineering assumptions. The Tacit Assumption Extraction Protocol, applied from the start, would have forced the team to ask, what are our hidden assumptions about the spacecraft's thermal model? They would have parameterized the model's uncertainty and varied it. They would have seen the anomalous acceleration was not invariant under those changes. It was assumption bound. The ghost was in the workshop, not in the heavens. This is, in practice, what the best scientists do: sensitivity analysis. Before declaring the discovery of the Higgs boson, the teams at CERN performed blind analyses, varying thousands of choices, cut values, background shapes, jet algorithms, to see if their precious bump survived. They were hunting ghosts. They were performing the TAEP, even if they didn't call it that. The firewall's role, therefore, is that of the assumption interrogation chamber. You are the interrogator. When a rule G is presented, you don't just admire its elegance. You seize the pipeline. You demand, show me the knobs you didn't touch, the defaults you accepted. Now turn them. Let me see the output. You are stress testing the chain of inference from the first volt in a wire to the final equation in a textbook. Let us be crystalline about what passes and what fails at this gate. What is allowed? You may use standard optimized settings. This is practical. But you must report the key tunable parameters. And you must demonstrate via the TAEP that your results are not critically sensitive to them. Any sensitivity must be folded into your final uncertainty. The honesty is in the disclosure and the test. What is forbidden? You may not hide influential pipeline choices, claim robustness without performing sensitivity analysis on tacit assumptions, dismiss alternative methods without testing their effect, treat software defaults or cultural habits as laws of nature. They are choices. They must be examined. The consequence of failure. If the check fails, the license consequence is severe. Fail. The rule is deemed assumption-bound. It is not discarded. It is downgraded. Its scope is shrunk to the exact pipeline settings that produced it. It must be rewritten with its hidden assumptions dragged into the light of the official assumptions registry. It can no longer claim universality. It is now a rule of the form. Under processing method X with smoothing kernel Y, we observe pattern Z. It is a local bylaw, not a universal law. We must now state the prediction and falsification for the TAP itself, the meta rules for judging its work. Prediction of a true rule. If a rule is a real constraint on phi, it will remain substantially intact under controlled assumption rotation, within declared uncertainty. Its core is invariant to the replaceable parts of our method. The truth is what remains when the incidental choices are washed away. This is pipeline invariance. Falsification of a rule's robustness. If changing one tacit assumption destroys the rule, if parameters leap outside their error bars, if the fit disintegrates, then the rule was that assumption wearing a mask. The falsification is the demonstration of critical sensitivity. The rule dies when its hidden crutch is kicked away. A profound cautionary tale from history is the N-ray affair. In the early 1900s, French physicist Prosper René Blonglot announced the discovery of a new radiation, N-rays. They affected sparks and phosphorescent screens. Dozens of scientists confirmed it. The effect, however, was an illusion, a phantom born of tacit assumptions about subjective observation in dim light. The critical test came when American physicist Robert Wood, during a demonstration, secretly removed the crucial prism from Blondlot's apparatus. The observers, unaware the heart of the machine was gone, still saw the N-ray effects. The rule, N-rays exist, collapsed utterly when a single tacit assumption that the apparatus was functioning as described was rotated by secretly disabling it. It was a textbook ghost. The TAEP would have exposed it immediately. Vary the assumption that the device is intact. Does the effect persist? It did not. The law was the ghost. To root this abstract protocol in the soil of human wisdom, let me offer an analogy from the world I know. A forensic investigation in an Afghan village. A man is attacked at night. The village council must find the truth, the plut of the event. Their pipeline is the event F, witness observations, windows, raw contradictory stories, processing, questioning, alignment, interpreted statements, F sentences, a verdict, G. Person X is guilty. Tacit assumptions goes through this human pipeline. An omega ghost. The timeline from the first, most confident witness is the objective truth. Temporal smoothing. A K ghost. The crime scene sketch by the village guard is complete and accurate. Spatial coordinate choice. A V ghost. A person seen fleeing is guilty. Flight implies culpability. A frame that couples motion to moral state. Based on this, person X is convicted. He had argued with the victim. He was seen running. Now a wise elder, the top interrogator, steps in. He is not satisfied. He rotates the omega assumption. He interviews witnesses separately, unprompted. The unified timeline shatters. The shout came before the run. No, the running was first. The assumption of a clear sequence wobbles. He rotates the K assumption. He walks the scene with others. They find a hidden footpath omitted from the guard's sketch. The spatial geometry of guilt changes. Could X have come another way? He rotates the V assumption. He asks, what if a man runs from danger, not from guilt? He changes the interpretive frame. Running is no longer a vector of culpability, but of fear, of surprise, of a need for help. Under this rotation, the rule of guilt, G, collapses. It was not robust. It was an artifact of the initial unexamined choices. Trusting the first timeline, the official sketch, the flight equals guilt frame. The verdict was assumption-bound. The elder's decree is the firewall's license consequence. The verdict scope is narrowed to only that specific unverified story. It cannot support punishment. The investigation must be rewritten with its assumptions explicit. Our finding assumes witness A's timeline, assumes the guard sketch, assumes flight implies guilt. These are now on the table, open to challenge. This is justice, the ruthless hunting of ghosts in the pipeline of human judgment. To do otherwise is to convict an innocent based on the quirks of our perception, not on the substance of truth. In Holophase science, the crime is the unexplained phenomenon. The witnesses are our instruments, telescopes, colliders, surveys, giving noisy, fragile testimonies, fee sentences. The rush to verdict is the rush to publish. The tacit assumptions are our unexamined data recipes. The wise elder is you, the scientist, applying the Tacit Assumption Extraction Protocol. Without it, we risk convicting innocent parameters and imprisoning our understanding in a jail of our own, unchallenged methodology. This protocol is the ultimate enforcer of the Episode 11 axioms. It ensures that variation is tested not just in the world, but in our very lens. It enforces a deeper independence. The rule must be independent of our pipeline's arbitrary choices, and it upholds the cardinal rule. When a rule fails, we do not believe harder. We tighten, downgrade, or retire its license. Under the TAEP, failure is the exposure of a hidden dependency. The response is to shrink the rule's claim to fit the narrow territory where it is actually robust. The skill you gain here is methodological skepticism. It becomes a reflex. You will distrust any result, especially your own, that hasn't been stress tested against its own hidden premises. Your first question becomes, what are the 5 unspoken choices here? What happens if I change them? This is the final intellectual bulwark against self-deception. It separates the scientist from the believer. This skill is vital on every modern frontier. In climate science, is a temperature trend robust to changes in the algorithms that homogenize data from different weather stations? A spatial temporal ghost. The TAEP demands the test. The replication crisis is a system-wide failure of tacit assumption extraction. Are published effects robust to different statistical models, outlier treatments, covariate choices? The TAEP requires pre-registered sensitivity analysis. Is that tantalizing bump a new particle, or is it critically sensitive to the background subtraction model? The TAEP forces the collaboration to vary the model. Does an AI's stunning performance depend critically on a specific data augmentation trick or a random seed? Robustness requires testing across these choices. This is the TAEP for algorithms. Let us summarize what we have built. The Tacit Assumption Extraction Protocol is the firewall mechanism that exposes and tests the hidden choices, the ghosts in our scientific pipeline. These ghosts often whisper to one echo of the triunity, omega, K, or V. The protocol is a 4-step exorcism. Identify, parameterize, rotate, observe. The firewall acts as an assumption interrogation chamber. You are the interrogator. The prediction for a true rule is pipeline invariance. The falsification for a rule's robustness is critical sensitivity. The license consequence is a downgrade to assumption-bound status, with a narrowed scope and a mandate for explicit rewriting. This adds the deepest layer of methodological hygiene to our firewall. It ensures the rules that survive, that earn a broad license, are not just mathematically clean and statistically sound. They are ontologically robust. They are about fa. They remain true even when we change the station on the radio, so long as we are still tuned to reality. A candidate rule must now pass through 7 gates of the epistemic firewall. 1. The syntax gate, well-formed contract. 2. The proof obligations court, testability. 3. The type-checking inspector, categorical coherence. 4. The anti-gambling registry, honest search. 5. The data council gate, robust, diverse inference. 6. The minimal packing gate, efficient explanation. 7. And now, this assumption interrogation chamber, invariance to our own machinery. Only a rule purified through all 7 can earn the broad license of a law. This is how science remains sane. This is how we build knowledge that is not just persuasive, but inevitable. Knowledge scrubbed clean of our own fingerprints. If you wish to see the full mathematical Gouda of this idea, search for Holophase on Zenodo. The papers are there. Carry the light of the assumption interrogator. Shine it into every dark corner of your own analysis first. Then, with humility and rigor, demand the same of others. This relentless, loving honesty is the highest form of respect for the truth, for your community, and for the profound mystery of Phi that speaks to us always through the noise. And now, a warning. A rule can pass all these gates, can have all its assumptions dragged into the light, and still betray us through one final, subtle corruption: pride. The belief that our now explicit, clean rule is universal, that it applies everywhere, forever. This is the last and most seductive trap. It leads us to the firewall's final, culminating function. Salam and peace be upon you.